welcome to our session. Week 24, actually. We've been running this program for almost 24 weeks. We had amazing speakers who came about for our sessions, and it started off from Dave Yang. Dave is from Malaysia.
So yeah, I'll be joining the organization as a partnership development senior associate. So yeah.
And then from then on, we had Dr. Koo.
So actually, I am a freelance chiropractor.
Okay.
I've been for a year. So I collaborate with Ping An, and also, I have news to break as well, but then I would just keep it to myself for now. Then anyways, I collaborate with two centers. So one in TCM, another one with a rehab center.
Okay, and then of course the third week we had none other than Ryan Tan from Prudential. Ryan, would you just like to share a few things?
Hi everyone. My name is Ryan Tan. I'm from Prudential. I'm a wealth planner. So basically, what I do is I help my clients to also, do like reviews and also to show them and guide them towards the right financial planning path. Yeah, towards their financial goal.
Great. And last but not least, I have with me today is none other than R. Suban.
Hey Jesse, thank you so much for giving me this great opportunity. All right, good evening everyone. My name is Suban. By profession, I'm actually a child psychologist and also the founder of PowerSup One-Stop Mental Health Care Services. So what we do here as a one-stop center, we work together with various professionals such as medical doctors, psychiatrists, counselors, autism interventionists, pediatricians and therapists in helping children, teens, and also adults. As we have focused really on children between the age of 2 years to 21 years old, and also adults up to 60 years old, where you see most of the depression cases comes in, and schizophrenia and all this, so on and so forth. So our expertise here are actually helping parents and education centers to make sure their child and their teen performs very well. So yeah, about 20 seconds about me. Let's make it very brief.
So as you can see, this session will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And it will be also available on YouTube. So for those who are tuning in live on Facebook, if you missed this, you can watch it on YouTube and various other platforms. So in just a quick sharing, so for some of y'all, we've asked some of the questions. They may be quite similar to what you've shared with us, but I guess in a roundup, just to round up everything, perhaps would you guys, any of you would like to just share with us the challenges you faced in your respective industry during the last 10 months?
I think for me, compared to MCO or this time around the CMCO, actually this time around the CMCO kind of affect me, and also because I'm in the PJ area, so and somehow it's in near SS2, right? So it's quite challenging for me, and because people don't really want to travel over to, they want to avoid the crowd or the SS2 area. Then some of my job scope involves a lot of touching. So of course I would try to assure them with the strict SOP that we implemented in clinic, and obviously I will be wearing my mask all the time, and then I'll be wearing gloves, and then we will be sanitizing the tables every single time if we change switch over patients.
Hey, actually at the start, if you're speaking about the last 10 months when MCO first implemented, it was quite lost for us, because I think most of us here, our business required human face-to-face communication, right, face-to-face. So actually it did really affect it, and we're not allowed to travel out or even to go outside and meet people. So fortunately, with CMCO and RMCO coming back, and also of course our company Prudential has already been constantly coming up with lots of solutions or platform to even help us to assist our clients in getting them covered via this virtual application. So I think that helped a bit, and then now things for us is getting better, because we're allowed to go out and meet people, and our clients already have more confidence in terms of meeting us. But of course there are some that still are a bit skeptical or have this paranoid of meeting us. So we still use a bit of the Zoom video call and things like that. Yeah, but basically I think over the 10 months things are getting better, things are improving. starting to see the changes there?
First, it depends. It's a challenge phase in business or a challenge phase with patients. So in terms of when it comes to business, yeah, there are fluctuations in business and challenges we face that mostly we don't. Most of our parents that who sends their kid to us are very paranoid in terms of they're afraid that their kid might inhibit this COVID because we deal with kids at the end of the day, and when we do therapies, like for example we do physical therapies with kids, so we have to have physical touch with them, and all these challenges we face where parents come and ask us, has your staff done the test, you know, and all these things. But anyways, what we face here, feel that when it comes to patients, we receive a lot of patients coming in with depressions. So and we feel that I think instead of facing the challenges that we are facing based in our industry, my job here is actually to help more of the people out there.
So basically, there were two particular instances of MCO, right? There was the initial nationwide lockdown happened in mid-March towards the end of June. And then there was the more unexpected CMCO, although you're more semi-prepared this time, but I think in the sense of what Teach for Malaysia does in the fellows and the schools that they're placed in, they are more on the underprivileged side. So, you deal with schools that are right in the middle of B40 communities. So they are like in the center of PPRs, which are low-cost housing areas. So naturally, it's already on the back foot in the sense that they don't have the means to learn online. And the school also didn't have the means to support that kind of virtual learning anyway. So even in physical learning, there were already so many obstacles. Like, students already didn't have access to resources. Students already weren't given the best education growing up or the best household environment growing up. So the MCO only kind of widened that gap in that sense, because you look across your peers who are working in international schools, and all the students are accountable, all the parents give them A-grade equipment to work with at home. Wi-Fi isn't an issue. But you have students here who, parents can afford data, parents can afford Wi-Fi at home. But you got 8 other siblings who need to use the same phone for their online classes as well. So in that was the situation we were working with, right? So it's also a case of how much could you actually go online. So that's on the more technical aspect of things, but also understanding that the mentality was what mostly Teach for Malaysia fellows had to work with. But the reason why we were placed in these schools was basically to address how the community approached education in a sense. So they were already kind of antagonistic towards education because they already felt that they weren't good enough. Even in the physical setting, there were so many psychological aspects you had to deal with. But with the MCO, you kind of cut off that human connection with your kids, right? So I think the best stories, if you ask me, within the last 2 years I was in school, were all these very humanistic things that the kids displayed. And unfortunately, because of the lack of accountability there is with Zoom calls, I mean, you can always have a Zoom meeting or a Google meeting just for the sake of having it. But kids are most likely not going to be tuned in because they already don't feel like they're worthy and good enough for that setting. So when you still try to force feed them to virtual learning, it just goes against their nature of learning. You want to ease them into learning, but MCO, you're gonna work with. So I think, in a sense, I think teachers could only do so much because of virtual learning. And then I think it's just a very, very sad occurrence in the sense, right? So I think if you're asking me like what the real challenge was like, where was the real system? Like what could we have done better? Not in just like in terms of what schools or teachers or students could have done, but on a broader, on a much higher level, what could the education system have done better in terms of providing for these kids? So yeah, I mean, like if you ask any teacher working in a government school, it was definitely very tough. And if you ask teachers who were working in international school, it was business as usual. Like, teachers really didn't face any problem. I think, in fact, a lot of international school teachers actually liked virtual learning because, it also gave them a bit of accountability, a little bit more creativity and room to explore these teaching methods, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's the bigger difference between government schools and probably international schools.
That leads me to one of the other question for perhaps, towards Suban. As we spoke earlier, do students, right, you have some kids, and I know this based on my experience when I was struggling in my uni days. I didn't see like a psychologist, but I knew my friends, when they were struggling and everything, they went and go and see a psychologist and stuff, and some of them are going through certain depression and challenges. More recently, I think I heard from one of I won't disclose the name. It's a friend, and during this MCO, during this pandemic, really struggling with the studies online. So connecting the dot to what I've just mentioned with Steve earlier, preparing for the students, and sometimes the students, they are not used to doing it on Zoom because they prefer the physical connection. And so it was the same case. He's in uni and he's struggling, and he went and tried to see a psychologist, and he says it kind of helped a bit because he told me he needs that physical interaction, and somehow it got him sort of like inspired back, but he was not used to it. So perhaps in your view, as a psychologist, do you have this kind of people who come to you, like any students or any kids or parents who come to you saying, my kid is sort of struggling this MCO time to study, is there any way you could help them, especially during the last 10 months?
Yeah, definitely, Jesse. We experience various ages basically. So when, let's just say, for example, the 21 years old we received last week came in, and then she comes and tells us that she's got a lot of issues. She can't concentrate on her studies. She can't do online classes. It depends. It's very subjective. Basically, when it comes to different problems, different issues, different clients, individual differences are there. So what we see here is that we feel that we want the client to actually open up to us. See, people come to us like when, for example, you mentioned earlier that if they're coming themselves individually, it's a different thing compared to a parent forcing their kid to come to us. That's two different things. When someone is forced to come to us and we want to help them, it's going to take some time. But someone who's willingly coming to us and says that they want to get themselves sorted out. So what we do here is we get the clients, because in most of them, when they go through a traumatic situation or when they go through a paranoid situation, when they can't cope with one another, they can't share their feelings with one another, for example, husband and wife, for example, father and son or father and daughter, they can't share things with them. They feel more relieved, they feel more relaxed when they come and share it to a psychologist. This is where our part as a psychologist is we are very neutral. We have our ethics basically. We don't give our clients solutions. We get our clients to come up with their solutions and we guide them throughout. So it may take maybe 3 months, it may take 6 months, it may take a year, it may take 2 years. It depends on how severe the situation. Because probably if there's any questions for me to share on how to help these clients, I may share later on a CBT method that can actually help clients resolve all these depressive cases, because that is like a therapy which you can actually work on a daily basis. So when it comes to children and when it comes to kids, what I would say is we would want to definitely work step by step basically. That means first thing is you have to understand what's the client situation like before you can even encounter a solution for the client to say it out that, I want to work on this, I want to work on that. But of course, assessments that we do is very reliable and it's very valid. So in terms of understanding a human, first thing we have to understand that a human have got 16 core behaviors. They have got, like, for example, 12 core behaviors which are clinical, and maybe another 4 core behaviors which are adaptive. So you see, it's very technical when it comes to this. It's not like when someone has a problem, they come to us and then we straight away open up, we speak to them and we solve their problems. No, it doesn't work that way. We actually have to assess them step by step in order for us to make our intervention very, effective for them. In order for the intervention to be effective, it takes a long process, and also it depends on severity.
Dr. Koo, for yourself, in the chiropractor, I'm going dive into the chiropractor practice, right? The challenges that you all face in there. When the MCO came in, kicked in, and then, of course, now you still can see your patients, right? But is there something different, as in, you probably have to wear gloves or something?
So in SS2, we'll definitely number one is the check-in, right?
Yeah.
And number 2 would be gloves and the mask, and cleaning of the table, very important. And I have this alcohol, like the clinic provides the alcohol swab. Whenever if you really need to touch the skin, then we swab it. and then after we touch already, and then we swab it again. And if you're really paranoid, then the association also advised that you can actually like tell them, oh, we're gonna like spray sanitizer over that area that we have contacted, something like that. And then we also ask them after the session, please go and wash your hand. Yeah.
Right.
So
Good.
it's like a whole new level, okay. And then the clinic also actually at night, in the evening, they will also turn on like the UV ray, just to like for like half an hour kind of thing, just to make sure it's cleaner and also to protect us. Of course, we're not inside when the UV ray is on. And then the other center in Publica, the rehab facilitation, they invested on the sanitization machine and the air purifier by a very renowned brand. Okay, it's from a health screening center actually, and they have a lot of branch in China and Taiwan. And so this air purifying thing, they have so you put it in the rehab facilitation, and then there's this it's like a fogging machine as well. So in the morning when they come into rehab center, they would sanitize everything. It used to be a fitness center, and then rebranded to a rehabilitation service. So it's actually the same thing, because as long as you're doing therapy, right, and strength and conditioning, the equipments are actually similar, actually the same lah. So then we have to spray everything, and then in the morning then after that, before they go home, spray again, fogging again, and then wear gloves. Like basically you have to wash your hands every single time if you switch between patients. And honestly, at the start I find it a bit annoying, because I feel like, oh my goodness, am I like high anxiety, like high functioning anxiety person? Because I'm not that kind of person who, so caught up with all these little details. I am about details, but not to this extent. So sometimes it makes me feel kind of like a bit crazy lah. But I think sometimes I just tell myself, I'm like, okay, this is for the benefit of my patient. It is acceptable during this period.
The reason why I asked you that, because when massage places was closed, and then when they start to open, and then my parents, they started asking, okay, we go to massage. Then I'm just thinking, you go to massage places, these people, you wonder how many times they have to go through, I mean, for not just massage people, but the people who have to physically, hands-on with the people, for treatments, like doctor, you have to sanitize every time. It's like every single time. It's like me asking, like every time I see somebody touch a dog, spray your hand, OCD. It's like it drives you into that. Now, I got this question, suddenly popped up in my mind, because and it's going to be for Dee, because I just saw this one day on my feed. Just to give you the gist of the story, my friend is a lawyer, right? And lawyers, they have to go into the office, but unfortunately there's some days that MCO they couldn't go. And so I saw his story. One day he decided to check himself into a hotel which is next door to his office, and what he did was he brought that whole stack of work and bring it into the hotel, because it's just next door. For you as teachers, right, when you go back and prepare, you're bringing that whole stack back with you, or you're just prepare as much in the school? Because I'm pretty sure you're allowed to go back to school for the teachers, but not the students. Do you prepare all of your sessions all in the school and then you go back, or do you take some of them back with you and then you prepare for them and share it online? Because I've seen your stories, you share it with your students online, but where do you prepare all this stuff?
All right, I think during the MCO, actually teachers aren't encouraged to go back to schools anyway. So that stack of work does happen on a regular basis before and after the MCO, either way. So I think teachers, as much as they say that we finish school in midday, we take the school back with us. School never ends. I think the 2 years as a teacher fellowship fellow, I've worked more than I've ever worked as an engineer. So that's the bit of it. But I think for MCO, because you're I mean, it's all virtual, right? So I think you technically take your work anywhere, and all the resources you want to teach are kind of virtual. But the administrative work that you have to do, that you do bring back. So there's a whole stack of PAJ-SK forms. It's basically just their co-curricular activities book, and you need to key in all of their marks individually for every class that you teach. So I remember one day I took a whole stack, a whole file of it was about this thick of just students' activity books. Right, I took it to a cafe, and then the barista just looked at me. It's like, "Are you gonna have a long day here?" I said, "Yes." It's okay. The usual black coffee. He said, "Yes." And then just like this, me sitting there with my laptop and a stack of files and just keying in all of their marks individually on this government website that will refresh every 2 minutes. And that is the I think it's 70% of what I do, administrative work mostly. Teaching is fine. Teaching is natural.
Right.
But the administrative work now, that's a challenge of its own.
For Suvan, I don't know about psychology too much on that side. When you guys were, well, you guys are technically essential, would I say? When MCO, were you allowed to go to work? I'm pretty sure that was a key thing, because psychologists are really important during the time.
Yep.
But were you open at that time, or were you conducting your sessions elsewhere?
We were forced to as well close down our centers because looking into the awareness that is in Malaysia, I think the awareness is quite poor. So in terms of understanding mental health issues I think most of them are not really aware of what is happening. Because you see, even for a simple case like parents arguing in the house, actually likely there will be like 15 to 30% of a child inhibiting mental health issues by just seeing their parents having an argument at home. But you see, these are the things that I feel that the country has got to do something so that in future, I think these certain things of all these small factors can actually affect a child very much in depth. So it can actually spoil a child's future as well. There's a difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist. Like I mentioned, there's the awareness in Malaysia is still quite poor. In terms of someone has got a mental health issue, or maybe someone is in depression, they straight away say that I think you got to go and seek for a psychiatrist for help.
Right.
So is it a psychiatrist? They are actually GPs. They are general practitioners. They are medical doctors who actually specialize in psychiatry. So that's the reason why when they come out as psychiatrists, they learn certain medications on what kind of medications to prescribe, and they learn about the disorders. When it comes to a psychologist, we do not prescribe medications. We work more on therapies. So therapies such as CBT, CES, therapies such as ABA, or name it. There's so many types of therapies. So depends on what issue is it. We work on that therapy. And compared to medications are all just temporary supplements. You take today, you feel better today. If you don't take tomorrow, you'll be back to square one again. So therapy is something that we implement to most of our clients to actually work on themselves. I think the will is in you. It's not on the medication. It's you have to work on yourself first. You see, medications, I'm pretty sure if you have heard of the placebo effects as well. So placebo effects is something interesting as well. Maybe I think it's too lengthy to share about it now, but probably I'll share it the next session. Yeah, someone goes and see a psychiatrist. It's a stigma. You have a mental health issue, and a psychiatrist is a person that actually does a diagnosis and give you a direct diagnosis straight away. And I feel that they do label people. Labeling is not what we want to do at the end of the day. So when someone with PPD, we just received a postpartum depression. That means this is very common in females who's after confinement, who deliver a child, and maybe it lasts for probably a year, or maybe it can last for 2 years. But this particular person went to a psychiatrist and got some medications. So when she got some medications, you see, especially when you go to the government sectors, you take 6 months, 3 months, or maybe a year to get an appointment, or probably 3 months once you go for sessions. So that is not how it works actually when it comes to therapy. When you come to a psychologist, like I mentioned, we do step-by-step basis. We have to actually really understand the client's situation. So what did that client complain? Not to say complain. That client told me that, yeah, I went to the doctor. The doctor gave me a medication. I took the medication. I was better off for like 2 weeks. And then I feel I was better off. I stopped the medication, and then it hit me back again. So you see, what other practitioners or other professionals are doing, I think that they're also doing their best to help everyone out there. But then I feel that when it goes to the European standards compared to here, I think European works as a team. For example, what I mentioned earlier, we are a one-stop. What does a one-stop mean? That, when you have a client, you have various professionals in terms of a counselor, in terms of a psychiatrist, in terms of a psychologist to actually understand that client situation and give more. It's like, for example, you take 5 brains to work together to solve a client's problem compared to 1 brain working to solve a client's problem. Which will work the best? Of course, the 5 brains will work the best if you were to ask me. So this is what we see, that in Malaysia there's maybe overall 500 over psychologists in the whole of Malaysia, and maybe it may have increased a little bit. But for my incident, when I graduated as a master's holder, I applied for 60 over companies to get a job, but coincidentally we couldn't get a job. Is because first thing, a master's holder, you will ask for a higher pay, and secondly, it's what we do, our job scope, the awareness is not there. So to work as a psychologist in this country is not very much compared to for example UK, compared to for example US and all. That is quite common. So what I'm trying to do here is maybe probably the next 5 years down the road, our plan is to build an association. We have an association for psychiatry, we have an association for clinical psychology, but where is the association for child psychology, or where's the association for psychologists in general? So that when we have all these things with us, it's easier for us to give more and more awareness to the public. That's whereby actually when it comes step by step, if a client has got an issue, they come and seek help from a psychologist first, understand the behavior, and then we will refer them to the psychiatrist if we find that particular client has really severe issues based on after assessing them.
Now I got that insight for myself, because as myself, I went into both before back then, and from your explanation, hopefully for those who are listening live on Facebook and audience, who should you see, whether a psychiatrist and psychologist? So I think Dr. Suban has mentioned.
It's very subjective, Jesse. I would say it's very subjective. It's based on the individual by themselves. Maybe one individual can say that a psychiatrist helped them much compared to a psychologist, but maybe another individual will say that a psychologist helps them much better than a psychiatrist. So it depends on the individual at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm going to go in the next question. We all come from different industries, right? But we come in the same, and I sent this question to you guys earlier on. And the reason I asked this question, because it became a key into my understanding. It became something that how I really felt very empowered was when I went through this question. I said, how did I get, like some of my friends say, how do you get along with so many people? How do you understand other people that they are going through life?
All right, so how we support one another, during this time? I think if you're talking about, because I'm also in this business networking platform, which is known as PENI, which is I'm same with Dr. Suban here. So actually, how we support each other is, we help them to look for.
You forgot Dr. Koo. You forgot Dr. Koo as well.
Hi, Dr. Koo. Sorry. Yes, she's also.
Oh, now you know. Okay, I was just about to cut you and just. By the way, Dr. Koo is also.
Yeah, we are different chapter lah. We are from a different chapter. So yes. So apparently, how we help each other is, let's say, we help different business owners from different industry. That is, we constantly help them to look out for potential clients, and then we refer them to them. That is one way we can help them in terms of business. Well, in terms of, let's say, support, in terms of how I say, not mental or spiritual support, I would say. We give them words of encouragement. We constantly, check on them and see how they're doing. And of course, if sometimes people just want to have a company or someone to speak to, a listener. So, be their listener. A moment after they speak it out, they spill it out, they will feel much better. And of course, at the end of the day, we constantly encourage them. They feel better at the end of the day, and then they can continue to go on with their journey. So I think that is how we help in terms of business, and also in terms of the spiritual or the spiritual side.
Going up with Ryan's question as well, BNI is one of a very good platform. And also that we know that most of the industries here are facing a very challenging time. And we know that, due to this pandemic, that many of them have lost their jobs, and also retrenchments are happening. So in terms of since I've given an opportunity here, I would like to really voice out to, if anyone who's watching on Facebook, we have actually provided a B40 development plan for lower income groups who seek to us for help, which we are getting many now, but actually they couldn't afford the nominal fee which everyone is charging out there. So in terms of this, for general public, we are here to actually help them, to support them lah, and also giving them social support such as CBT, and providing a WhatsApp group for clients in terms of just putting in more and more knowledge towards them and helping them out. And also, your second question, how are we able to have a different perspective towards the situation we may face with? Okay, this one maybe, if you don't mind, can I share a screen? Because
Yeah.
this one I would just say is one thing that use CBT as a daily therapy lah. That's what I will say. Because you see, most of us in this current situation, right, that we're actually facing daily stress, and we also have chances to have high level of anxiety, depression in us. So how, in terms of we perceive these feelings and we tackle these thoughts in us, this is actually my specialty lah. CBT is what I do. CBT, let me explain to you all in a brief term. It's cognition behavioral therapy. So cognition is what you think about most of the time, and behavior is what you perform, what you do, and therapy is a therapy. So for example, as a human being, we all think too much. We all have got a lot of issues in running in our head, but what do we do next? Do we still keep those issues in our head, or do we throw those issues out of our head? Is it an easy thing? If I were to ask you, for example, Jesse, throughout the years, those days when you were going through a very high level of depression and all, what was your method for you to come out from that problem? What did you do actually? Or what were you advised by the psychiatrists or by the psychologists to actually perform through yourself?
I think at the end, after that advice that I received, I think at the end of the day, I look back and just said to myself, there's more to life than this, than me jumping into conclusion, right? As much as what the psychologists have said, I look at myself and say, there's more to life than this. There's so much things that I could do rather than just putting myself in this situation. And I think, again, it's as much as it's down to an individual to make that choice, you also would probably need some words of encouragement from other people. And if you do not have that kind of support system, and that's where you're going to struggle a lot, which I notice around some of my friends as well. And unfortunately, that's what I encountered when I lost a friend through depression and committed suicide. And that was something I said I was unfortunate, and something that I think, if you would say a regret, if I may say it's a regret, is that maybe I should have followed up with him even more than I did, because at my time I had the support of my friends, but for him, he didn't have that. So to me, that was my case. After getting advice, I just said there's more to life than this and stuff, more than just individual factor as well. Yeah,
You're right, definitely you're right. That's what we're exactly doing, that we are providing social support in terms of creating WhatsApp groups and putting him as much as many people in there. But of course there will be only one or two admins, so that when many people replies, that it goes haywire. So in terms of this, that when we provide knowledge in terms of depressive cases, in terms of articles, in terms of videos, I think all these are very beneficial to the public, for them to understand what is happening out around them. And yes, for what you mentioned earlier, Jesse, that empowerment, I believe, is very important. Giving you the motivation to actually come out from that problem is very important. But what today I may like to share a screen. CBT, like I mentioned earlier, is a cognitive behavioral therapy. So in this CBT, what we see here, can you all view the screen? All right. Okay, as a human being, in our life, we go through 3 cycles. It goes as a triangle, or you see here as a cycle. You see here. So for example, thoughts. What we think affects how we feel and how we act. So as a human being, Jesse, let's just say once upon a time you had a lot of depressive thoughts. Those thoughts were all negative thoughts. Am I right?
Yeah.
So when they are negative, how does your behavior affect? What affects? What do you do if your behavior, if your thoughts are very negative? You maybe isolate yourself in the room. You don't go out anywhere, and you keep towards yourself. You don't mingle around out with your friends, and those are all behaviors. And also, how that behavior can affect your emotion is that probably you will feel sad, you will feel disappointed, or probably you'll feel angry, or maybe you'll feel like highly severely depressed because you're keeping to yourself. So as a psychologist, we use the method of CBT to actually decrease the problems in anxiety and actually depression in our clients. So what we do is we get our clients to actually apply this method of CBT in them. First of all, we want them to list out what are all their negative thoughts, and what are their negative thoughts, and how their emotions get affected, basically. And looking at how their emotion gets affected, we see what behavior they perform. So as a human being, if you can alter your thoughts, let's just say so many of them, they can't change their thoughts. They say, no, it's just stuck in my head and I can't bring it out of me. Then what's the next method you see down there? Behaviors. What we do affects how we think and how we feel. This is a research done by many theories, many psychologists once upon a time, and they have came out with this method. They have come out with this therapy, saying that it really helps with patients with anxiety, because anxiety is all about what we think a lot in our head, basically. So as a human being, if you feel that you're too depressed, change your behaviors. If you change your behaviors, for example, going out and meeting with your friends, or going out and having some activities out there that it's distressing, it will actually help you to alter your thoughts, and it will help you alter your emotions. It works. But of course, this takes practice. Every single day, whatever thoughts it goes through your mind, you have to write it down on a paper, and you have to see what are the consequences that you're facing. Example, your behavior. What are you doing? Sometimes what we are doing and what we are thinking, we are not aware of it. When you go through a very depressed level, when you go through a very high, severe level of anxiety, sometimes your brain just gets numb. I always ask my clients the question, does your brain controls your mind, or does your mind controls your brain? Which one will it be, Jesse?
To me, it's your mind. What you think, the power of perception. I think to me it's always your thoughts that really triggers something that makes you do certain things. And I think there's a saying that the power of your thoughts actually will make you move into that direction. So to me, it's always having mindsets, and if you have a good mindset of staying positive and being, keeping yourself, as I said earlier, choosing, we have a choice, right? And
Yep.
when we make that choice through our mind, our bodies, and I think to me will follow towards that direction that you choose.
Exactly. So like you see, your brain is just an organ, part of your body, right? And your mind, it's something that it can control everything. Whatever you feel like you want to control, it just works. It's just that when we as a human being, we go through certain level of depression, certain level of anxiety, or maybe we go through anger. We don't think before we react. Those are human beings. So this will actually really help a patient, if you ask me, not really a patient, anyone who has high level of anxiety, or anyone who have high level of depression, they can actually use this simple method to apply it on themselves on a daily basis, which I feel that it will really help, because at the end of the day, it's your mind that controls what you think, how you feel, what you do. So of course,
I think if we really want to, we really will dive into that context more into when we have Suban come in for a 2-segment podcast, and we will have you to come and share on that. Now, I think with that said, and so as we close up the year, plans have been flipped upside down, and throughout the 10 months, everything that we made plans, has just gone down the drain. And now 2020 will be the year that nobody will want to remind each other, how was it 2020? I don't think we all will be like, yeah, 2020 was good. I think everybody's like, yeah, forget about 2020. Let's put cancel /2020, right? Perhaps you guys can share, despite, this COVID-19, despite these challenging times, I'm pretty sure we all have some reflection for you all that perhaps you'll like to share, that you'll take away from this time, perhaps some learnings, some new things that you learned, and perhaps what do you look forward to in the coming year, in 2021?
I think it's pretty straightforward for me. What I'm looking forward to is how our country can handle COVID-19 and manage it very well, because otherwise our economy and health as well would suffer.
Yeah, you're right. I think in the UK, I just read the news. There's a new chain of COVID-19 happening, and they're in tier 4 now, which is really, it's scary. This thing is really real, and a lot of countries are banning. Just as what you said, Dr. Koo. It's you want to see how a country run better, and you just look at the UK. All the other countries are banning flights going into the UK, and so for those who are in the UK, they can't get out of the UK, and those who are outside, they can't go into UK, and it's really scary, the thought of like you're isolated in your island in that place and you can't go. Ryan, anything you'd like to share?
I think reflections here is mainly first we are grateful for to ourselves that we are still waking up on the right side of the bed, not on the wrong side. Yeah, we're still alive. We're still breathing air today. So yes, that's the first thing. Of course, second thing, I think this pandemic actually taught us a lot of things, because I believe here, like maybe Dr. Suban, even Dr. Koo, we all are in the business, right? So when we are hit with the pandemic, we have to come out strong. We have to adapt to situations. We can't just just give up. Like, sometimes people, like even in my industry, I do see some other agents there. They were like, oh, the pandemic hit, okay lah, we just see how things go lah, let it be. But we can choose to make a difference. So I think that really helped. The mindset is very important. How you want to make sure that things will end well in 2020 will depend on how you tune your mind to work. So that is one of the things that I actually would use to wrap up last.
Right. Okay. Dean, for your side, reflections of the year as a teacher, you went through a lot, and what do you look forward in the coming year?
I think 2020 was proof that you cannot ignore structures for too long before before they're exposed. So I think like within the teaching faculty, it was an open secret that a lot of public structures were not at the level they were supposed to be performing at. It was a matter of time before it was exposed, I think, and I think a global pandemic was the exact thing that would expose a terrible structure. Right? So in a sense, I was hopeful knowing that a lot of kids were great. I mean, like even in underprivileged schools, you can get amazing talents and amazing individuals, and the teachers for the most part are very dedicated even in these schools, right? But what are systems, right? Systems have to be better in order for everyone to thrive in those systems. And I think at the end of the day, what I look forward to in 2021 is hopefully, as a result of this, that the systems in public education will ramp up, and not just wait for the next pandemic before they start wondering about how to move forward and progress into like the current day and age, right? And personally speaking, I'm very excited working with TFM as the organization itself, because I've seen a lot of good come out of public investment, right? So a lot of private stakeholders have invested in education within my last 2 years. And I've been doing exactly that. So partnership development is looking for people who are willing to invest in education, not just in terms of resources, but in terms of like skills, in terms of like help in kind as well. So just knowing that everyone is whether you like it or not, is a player in how education pans out in Malaysia. So just really excited to see what comes of 2021, how people invest into education, and change it from the inside. I think if no one, if the guys up there aren't going to change it, it's left up to the people, right? I guess every day you see amazing individuals come up from left, right, and center just to help education get to where it's supposed to be. And yeah, I hope 2021 will be that year where we see education finally be put on the map here in Malaysia.
Great. And Dr. Suban, your reflection and what do you look forward in the coming year?
Well, I look forward for the coming years, of course, for a healthier year, and of course, strategies on how to help more people to actually deliver more awareness to the nation. That's what I'm looking at for the following year. And despite the pandemic which we have been going through this year, maybe I would like to just give a small advice to everyone. Let's just say my advice here will be maybe just take this chance, right? This pandemic as an opportunity. Spend quality time with your families at this, and take this golden opportunity, because it doesn't always come. And take this as also a positive point of view that things will change, because you see, most of them, they are going through a haywire situation because of all this pandemic and all, and they are unable to cope at home. But what I would advise is this is a golden opportunity. You see, when at times we don't have quality time to spend time with our family members, we complain. We say that no, we have to work 8 hours a day, we have to work 12 hours a day. But when when we are given an opportunity to stay too long together, and that is also a complaint. So things can it depends on the individual in themselves. You see, as a psychologist, I would say that it's very wide. It depends on you. At the end of the day, it's you. It's your will. It's in you. It's in yourself. So yeah, things change depends on you at the end of the day. So it's how you think at the end of the day. So yeah, that would be my one small tiny advice for everyone. So
Wow.
don't stress yourself up too much. It's no point to stressing yourself up too much. Just life is short. Probably we got another don't know how many years more to go, but let's leave this opportunity and do what we're supposed to do as a human being, and do it at the end of the day. Instead of looking at it negatively, I think it's not going to change anything. Looking at it positively, it will change a lot of things.
Great. Wow. Thank you, Suban, and thank you, for all the sharing. And I think, for my part, just to quickly wrap, just on Saturday, my group and I, as we were doing the New Year's recording for our premiere on New Year's Day, I think one of the things that really struck me was one of my members was saying that the motto of our values of this MET podcast, it sums up the whole year, the last 10 months. Pause, reflect, and carry on. And what Suban you mentioned earlier is take some time to spend time. And that's where the value of pause comes in, reflect, and then we move on.
Yeah.
And it's so timely that you just said that. I was just saying, wow, that was my closing. But my closing was based on the 3 values, and that's what I think you're correct. How psychologists, how we can make a difference in our lives. The power comes into our mind, and I think that's how, to me, I as I reflect back of the year, that's how I started the MET podcast. It was during these 10 months. Can you believe it? If it was last year, I don't think I would have done this. But over the last 10 years, started this trying to reach out to people, and the whole goal was trying to reach out to people in a way. And so if I reflect back the year, I said it's been quite a journey, as I mentioned to my MET team people. And I think for me to look forward in the year is I'm hoping that all of us will have a platform of avenue to reach out to people, and as you said, spread awareness in different ways. Until then, we will see you guys in 2021. And for those of you who are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And here's to hoping to a better 2021. Until then, see you guys.